So good afternoon, everyone, and a very, very warm welcome. I think it's afternoon for some, but like our speaker, it's probably morning. And lovely that you have joined us this afternoon. It's my great pleasure to introduce our guest speaker to you all and to say a very, very warm welcome to Rona. And I'd like to tell you a little bit about Rona because that will give you some background to her past experience. And so Rona was born in the Netherlands and grew up in Suriname in South America. She studied medicine at Erasmus University in Rotterdam. And in her 15 years of practicing medicine, she worked broadly in many different fields, including refugee camps, psychiatry, and various other areas. However, she soon realized that the real discomforts in human beings were not only physical, but emotional and spiritual as well. Rona joined the Brahmakumaris over 30 years ago and started centers in the Caribbean and South America over a period of time. But more recently, Rona was asked in 2017 to run our center in Manhattan, which is a very lovely center. And that's where she is currently. I've been meeting Rona at our headquarters in India over many years now. And I've always enjoyed her beautiful balance of depth, but also lightness. And found it very inspiring and also very entertaining as well. And I have no doubt that this is what you will experience in the next hour from Rona as she explores this very interesting connection between the body and the spirit. So a very, very warm welcome, Rona, to predominantly South Africa, but I'm sure there are people from around the world. So over to you and a very warm welcome.
Thank you, Belinda. Very nice to meet like this. And thanks to the team also for this invitation. It is quite interesting how we meet these days without having to travel by air. Today's topic on health and on illness. Such a fascinating area. And like Belinda shared, even during my studies in medicine, I very quickly realized that even though medicine had made huge advancements and there was many fascinating areas and discoveries and achievements in how to deal with the body and how to deal with illness, there was always this sense that something is missing, something is lacking, something is incomplete. And also the realization that real suffering of human beings is not so much at the physical level, but much more at a mental and an emotional level and at a spiritual level. And if those levels are addressed, attended to, even the physical discomforts can be dealt with in in a better way. People can tolerate more pain, for example, when they're mentally strong. They are more clear, even though there are situations in the body, they are more clear so they can take better decisions. So this whole area of the spirit and the mind, definitely at the time that I was studying, there was no attention paid to it. But I don't really think that there's much difference today in formal education in the medical world. But at the individual level, it is very useful to explore for ourselves. We might not change the way the medical world functions at present and healthcare systems. We might not be able to change them, and we still need them in many ways, but because they can address acute situations with the body very well. But from a spiritual perspective, they are not addressing root causes. Things are just being reshuffled. What spirituality does, and that is why I feel it is so important that at least at the individual level we look into that, is we are addressing a much deeper cause of illness and the basis of total health. And that might work at the very least preventative in terms of physical health. But to explore that, it is good to understand a broader picture and to understand nature and the dynamics of nature. And if we learn, or if we step back and observe nature and the flow of nature and the laws of nature, it is not very difficult to see that there are certain patterns and systems, and that there is a certain intelligence in nature, and that there are balancing forces in nature. Even if you observe the body, every day their hair falls out, maybe more than it should be, but some hair falls out, some cells are shed, they die off, skin cells, they die off. Now, why is that? Because new hair is growing, because new skin cells are being formed. And so the old is shed off, renounced, making way for something new. And you, with your eyes, you can't even see the difference, but your skin is not the same as yesterday, or a week ago, or a month ago, and definitely not years ago. Although it may look the same, but the tissue itself consists of different cells than was yesterday, than a week ago. And so this process of destruction, you could call it, destruction of old tissues, a shedding of old shells, giving way for new cells, creation, it makes that this skin stays intact and is sustained. And same with hair, same with all the aspects in the body. But body is just one aspect of nature. In the bigger scheme of things, nature shows us these balancing forces. And it is useful to begin to understand the nature of nature. If we are to understand health, and if we are to understand illness, we need to understand the nature of nature. And every day the sun comes up, but it doesn't stay daylight. That day, the upcoming sun and the daylight balances itself off with sunset, and then there is darkness. There is day and there is night. It balances itself out, and this sets rhythms for many things, even within our body, even our sleep patterns. They are balanced because of that. Now, seeing these balancing forces in nature, how does that apply to health and illness? Observing these balancing forces, one can say that nature is our friend, or nature is our helper, or nature wants us to be in our highest state and to live our full potential. Nature wants us to be master, and nature supports us to be masters. But when we go off track, when we go against the forces of benevolence, the forces of goodness, the forces of health, then nature has to correct us. Nature has to give us a nudge. Nature has to give us signals that we, as if like we call it modern day language, a wake-up call. Something we need to correct, something we need to shift, something we need to change. And if we don't listen to those nudges, or if we don't understand them, then this correcting force, these nudges become stronger and stronger and stronger. To give a simple example, if there is a fire itself is a nice phenomena in nature. If there is a bonfire, we like to watch, we like to sit around it, we warm ourselves with fire, maybe even have a party around the fire. It is a nice phenomenon. And fire is there, that is why there is warm water, that is why people can cook. The phenomena of heat and fire, that is a good phenomenon. But it has rules on how to deal with fire, how to deal with heat. And if I break those rules, then nature has to give me a signal. So one of the rules is you don't come too close to fire. One of the rules is you don't put your hand in fire. One of the rules is you don't go and sit on the fire. And if we still do that, it means we are putting the body in danger. And so what will be the way nature communicates to us? It will give us pain. And that pain will become intenser, 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 because there is danger. And so the pain, when I put my hand in fire, or I come close to fire, I put my hand in fire, the pain becomes intenser and intenser and intenser. But that pain is not there to give me problems or to be nasty. That pain is a signal for me. Take out your hand. There is danger. And when I take my hand back, the pain subsides. But if I put my hand further in the fire, the danger will increase and there will be burning, and I might end up burning the whole hand, burning the whole arm. I might even end up burning the whole body, and even physical death can be the result. So the message of nature, using the mechanism of pain, is there to alert me, is there to warn me, is there to tell me, hey, there is danger, don't cross. This is not the way to use your hand. This is not the way to use your body. This is not the way to use fire. Now, this example is quite simple, and we understand, and physical pain in this context is easy. We understand the message. We don't need to think too much, or we don't even need to think. Moment you come close to the fire, you will immediately pull your hand back. But there may be other pains, forms of pain, that we do not necessarily understand what it is that is nature, but what it is that nature is trying to tell us. But whether we understand or not, it is our duty to find out, because otherwise that pain will just continue and maybe become worse and worse, and the danger increases. But in essence, pain tells us you're doing something wrong. And this is not rocket science. We don't need to be super intelligent to understand this. But still, as a humanity, we have not learned this lesson properly. Because in this example of fire and hand in the fire, I can also put my hand in the fire and say, I do what I want. I don't care what anybody says or not says. I do what I want. I am boss with my own body and my own mind. And I drink some vodka or some alcohol to numb the pain. But I keep my hand in the fire. Or I go and get some painkillers and I swallow a bottle of painkillers just to numb the pain, but I don't shift my hand, leave the hand in the fire. Now that doesn't resolve anything. The only thing that it has done is I don't feel the pain for a temporary period of time. But actually the problem is increasing. I can try to distract myself, plan my holiday to go to the Bahamas or wherever, or try to talk with someone and distract myself, watch a movie, take some more alcohol, but not shift my hand. Now, it is very obvious that this is not very intelligent, but this is exactly what seems to be happening in the present world. We have more hospitals, we have more doctors, we have more nurses, we have more medical personnel, we have more medication than any of the generations before us. We have more treatment possibilities, we have more research going on, but still people are sicker and sicker and sicker physically. And more new illnesses are popping up regularly. And there are many forms of illness, physical illness, where we have no clue what to do, how to treat. And I'm not even talking about mental illnesses and psychiatric problems. So it is as it appears that we have been sitting on that fire and just trying to numb ourselves with some painkillers or some distractions, reshuffling the problem, but not really getting out of the fire. Because more and more signals and more intense signals are being sent all the time. Now, spirituality and the knowledge of Raj Yoga gives us a complete different angle to this whole thing. That maybe our positioning, the position that we need to change, is at the level of consciousness and is at the level of awareness and is at the level of how we use our minds and our thoughts and our decision-making power and our choices, how we use the body. Maybe the attitude towards the body itself need to completely shift. And at present in our world culture, how do we use our bodies? And what do we use it for? Many of us, I tried to draw. Can you see the whiteboard? Is it visible, the whiteboard?
Yes, yes, it is.
Yes. So at present, the model with which we live, and I'm generalizing, there of course may be individual exceptions or differences, but worldwide, the ideas about ourselves and about life in a simplified way is that at some moment in time, we are born. And when we are born, we are nothing and we are no one. Just a baby, vulnerable, in need of everything. And our sense of identity develops over time by what our parents tell us and what we see around us. And so we become someone based on who we have around us and what we have, how our body develops, and what we can accumulate, what we can get. And so we live our lives, and at some moment in time, that ends. But during that lifetime, our sense of value, our sense of happiness, and our sense of success is based on what we can acquire, what we can accumulate, and on the people we can have around us, the position we can get, the education we can get, the money we can accumulate, the kind of people we can accumulate around us. And so our sense of self and our sense of success and our sense of joy and well-being becomes, it is created by this feeling of what I own, of what I own, of what I own, of what I can get. And what I cannot get, it diminishes my quality, it diminishes my value, it diminishes my success, it diminishes my happiness. This positioning in life makes us extremely vulnerable and extremely dependent. And it is a kind of a beggar mentality, a needing mentality. I am nothing, and I will end up nothing. And the success of what happens in between depends on what I can get, what others can give me or do give me, or what I can take. I'm simplifying it, and maybe it sounds a bit funny, but this is the basic mindset the large majority of people in the world live with. And we ourselves, if we look inside, we might be in this also. Now, we had just had quite an extensive discussion on nature. Maybe nature sees this as abnormal. Maybe nature sees this as this is not really true. Nature sees us as masters. Nature sees us as complete beings with higher potential, maybe even divine potential. Nature sees us as beings who have infinite potential. not needy, begging, subservient. But this is the mindset very often when I talk with people, even friends, or even look inside the dynamics within my own mind. I often see this tendency that we feel I can only be happy when a certain situation is like this, or when people are like this, or the people around me are like this, or I can have this, or I can get this. Then I can be at peace. When I'm in a certain place with certain people, then I will have peace. I will be loving or feel loved when others love me and treat me lovingly. It is such a dependent state. And maybe that is the beginning of all illness, physical illness. Maybe the first illness is at this level, our positioning in this world, how we position ourselves. Maybe that is where the first abnormality has started. And spiritual knowledge offers us a completely different model. Spiritual knowledge says you are a perfect being, a complete being, a being who is invisible, of course, not physical, a soul, a being who is imperishable. You are a being who is innately made of peace and wisdom, a being who is free, a being who is divine in nature, a being who is joyful and playful and blissful, a being who is innately lovely and loving, and who doesn't need anything to exist, a being of consciousness. And in the Brahma Kumaris, to indicate this being, the soul, we use the image of light, like a tiny star. And so if we draw this, there is of course a body, which we all are so familiar with. But the body is animated by this living light, the soul. And it is the soul who uses the body. Body is like a vehicle. But the soul is the one who chooses, the soul is the one who has wisdom, the soul is the one who decides how to use the body. Consciousness in a body. And now the real self is the soul. And the body is the vehicle. Now, at birth, or even before birth, in the womb, when the embryo, the fetus start moving, when there is heartbeat, maybe little after, but when there is movement and there is experiencer has entered in the fetus, that moment is when the soul enters the body. Now the soul is that complete being, imperishable being, immortal being. And we come into this world, and at some time, soul leaves the body. And this in between is an extra experience. From this perspective, soul doesn't need anything to be a soul. The being doesn't need anything to be a peaceful soul, to be a loving soul. This is an extra experience, and we come into the body, we come into this world, not to take or to need or to desire or to demand or to expect. or to get dependent or to get trapped and to get into bondage. We come into this world to experience a variety of experiences. We come into this world to play the game of human life. And we get this wonderful toy, a body. We don't use this body desperately out of some greed or some desires. We use this body to share the beauty that is within, to share love, to share peace, to share wisdom. We use this body for acts of goodness and kindness, to play the game, but not to desperately get into some indulgence or to take something or to get into some attachment or lustful behavior or ego. And so in this model, where we feel we don't need anything, the body will be used for acts of benevolence and acts of sharing and kindness instead of this neediness. And when the body is used for that higher purpose, body will cooperate and nature will give its best. Body will be healthy. Our body will be give cooperation for those higher activities, serviceable activities, activities of cooperation. But when we use the body to take, when we use the body for vices, then nature says, wait a minute, this is not why I gave you that body. That is not the manual for a body. You are a master and you use your tools to uplift others or to reinforce their greatness, to play the game of life in a graceful, in a royal, in a wise way. But if you use the body out of ignorance and limited desires, then nature says, even the body says, this is not natural for the body. Even at the level of thoughts, certain thoughts create a physiological environment, an hormonal environment of joy, of vigor. And other type of thoughts, they create feelings of stress and flight and anger, but also the hormones associated with these feelings are different, and they do not create a peaceful or relaxed state of the body. And so this body wasn't made for anger, for ego, for hatred and revenge and for violence. And when we do use the body for that, there are repercussions. Nature says, I'm not going to cooperate with that. And one way nature tries to tell us, I'm not cooperating with you, is manifesting some form of illness. Because what you are using the body in general for is not what the body was made for. And so in a very simple way, this can help us come back to a more healthy state of mind, a more healthy perspective, and a more healthy positioning in life. And the whole spiritual journey is to shift from this mindset, I am nothing and no one, and I need to own, I need to have, I need to accumulate, I need to get, to be someone. And then still at the end of the journey, I have to let it all go again and to as if disappear in nothingness, which in itself gives us fear and lots of discomfort, the fear of dying, fear of leaving the body. In this model, that is all we are stuck with. Raj Yoga knowledge tells us that is very limited and definitely an erroneous way of looking at self and at life. You are a complete being. You are a master, a royal being. And this is an experience. You haven't come here to take or to acquire or to own. You have come here to share and experience and give. And when you leave, that is not the end of it. Maybe the end of the body, the tool, the vehicle. But you, the being of light, the being of consciousness, the soul, you continue on the journey. And so use your tool, the body, wisely. Use the vehicle according to its manual. And the manual, nature has its rules and regulations. And so over time, living in this limited model of self and of life, we have started to use the body for indulgences and for attachments and for ego. And nature says that is not normal. Shift back to that soul-aware, soul-awake state. Shift back into a consciousness of soul is here as a player, as a guest. We can't own anything. We don't need anything to exist anyway, because soul is immortal. And that would be a healthy positioning. And at the very least, give yourself the chance to experiment with this. This doesn't cost anything. Many medication these days, they cost so much and they don't really resolve things at a deeper level. But if we start to experiment with a more spiritual perspective on self and start to adopt a lifestyle in line with the spiritual wisdom and start using the body to manifest that healthy, that spiritual perspective, we might discover that body will cooperate in ways that we never thought before. And even if the body has certain limitations because of whatever happened in the past, we will still maybe discover that certain things can be overcome. Certain things can be comfort, certain things can be, stamina can increase. So I hope you take on this invitation to experiment with this different perspective on self and on life and a different way of using your body from the inside out. It is as if healing from the inside out, healing at a level of awareness, at a level of consciousness. We are not nothing and no one and needing and subservient and beggars, or even maybe slaves. We are masters. We are sovereigns. We are spiritual beings who already have everything. We are souls. We come from what is divine, and our inheritance is divine, and our innate nature is divine. And we have come into this world to express that. And when we position ourselves like that, nature may bow to us. And nature doesn't only mean the body, but definitely body is nature. But also the wider environment may treat us very differently than it does at the moment, because we have put ourselves right internally. Okay, I've talked a lot. It will be nice to hear something from any of you.
Thank you so much, Rona. It's in one way, it is so logical. It makes absolute sense. But please, if anyone has a question for Rona, please do feel free to put it in the chat. I see there is a question coming up from Linda. She says, Om Shanti, are there specific illnesses, diseases that manifest for specific types of incorrect karma or ignorance? Actually, I had a very similar question myself. So, yes.
Yeah. Yes, there are. Just give me a moment. I need to turn on. Just sorry. Give me a moment.
Yes, sure.
Yes. Yes, there is. But like everything in this play of the human life, it is quite intricate and very sophisticated play. But to give a simple example, food is a very nice, simple example. If there is indulgence in sweets, we easily know where that leads to. And when you talk, observe, work, research people, for example, with diabetes, you see there is this tendency to take pleasure from food in general, but definitely from sweet. Are you hearing this sound? Is it disturbing?
No, it's fine. Yeah.
You don't hear anybody else talking?
Actually, yes, in the background, there is now a bit of talking. Yeah.
Just give me a moment, but this will take a little longer. I need to turn off another device. Sorry for this. I didn't foresee this. So sorry about this, Linda. Okay. Yes, so for some illnesses, it is quite easy to observe the connection with certain habits or certain lifestyle situations. For example, allergies or things like diabetes. I did for a time during my studies, we did research in diabetes. And it is very clear observation. Not all, because I wasn't able to talk with everyone in the study, but you could see tendencies towards indulgence in certain food articles. And once the food article is stopped, in some cases, things can revert or things can become a little less bad. But in some cases, you can't really change things around anymore, as if there is some point of no return. There is a certain habit and we have behaved like that in a certain way or eaten a certain thing for over a long period of time, and a certain damage is done that cannot be reverted back. But still, stopping the physical action of eating certain things, it will maintain a certain balance. And so with diabetes, with allergies, certain forms of chronic infections, certain diseases, you can see a direct link with certain lifestyle habits. But there are many much more complicated illnesses these days. And I think it is not just because of one habit or two habits in terms of food or in terms of physical rhythm. There are other factors behind. And there are several factors working together. And so we cannot say, okay, I will stop eat bananas and that will now solve all my physical health problems, or I will stop indulging in dark chocolate and that finishes all my health problems. There are many different habits together that are all supporting an unhealthy lifestyle and an unhealthy use of the body. But also, as I have said, trying to explain with these examples, there is also the level of thought. And there is the emotional level. There are thought patterns that are abnormal for the soul. And there are emotions and feelings created that are unhealthy, even for the body also, but they are unhealthy at the level of consciousness. And even our attitude and our approach to life, that needs to be put right. So we can try and see, oh, this illness comes from this ego, or this illness comes from this habit, but it has become so complicated and so entangled up that you can't separate anymore in many cases, because there's so many factors and so many aspects that have become abnormal to our functioning and our personality, that it all needs to be put right. And this is why it is useful to just go to the root. And let us work at the root and not try to dissect and then try to individually treat every aspect. It might be not even possible anymore. You know, in cancer, sometimes when they do autopsy and they open up the body, the cancer is spread all over. They can't even find anymore where it started, where it originated. It has just spread all over the place. And what caused it, how it started, you can't even find it anymore. And I feel that is the human condition at the moment. There's so many aspects and so many angles that we are approaching and using wrongly, that, you know, you can't say, okay, I will not eat this, I will not eat this, I will not, you will have to stop eating everything. And then still there are many other aspects also. And this is why I feel spirituality is not a luxury anymore. It is an absolute necessity because it addresses things at the root. We are addressing the thing, we are trying to put consciousness right. And once we put that right, awareness or attitude right, thought patterns are right, then everything else gradually will fall in place. And nature will cooperate with us because it will recognize that we are on the right track and wanting to put things right at a deeper level. So like I said, yes, some illnesses you can kind of trace and you can rationalize, but also there is no big research going on in these types of areas. Because the present day modern position of medical science is we're not doing anything wrong. It's just nature is being unfair to us. And nature is imperfect, so we're trying to correct nature. It is a bit of an arrogant positioning, but that is deeper behind what is going on. So if that is the positioning of society, we're not doing anything wrong, it means I will not change. I don't want to change.
Yeah. Thank you, Rona. Karva, I think that also covered your question. Karva was asking about chronic illness, so I think that's been very helpful. But Sandra has an interesting question here. She says, I have type 1 insulin-dependent diabetes, which was diagnosed at the age of 6. I don't understand how this chronic condition could manifest at such a young age when I had no cognitive concept of body consciousness versus soul consciousness.
Yeah, very good question and fascinating, intriguing actually. But this is a phenomenon that we increasingly see on all levels, not just with insulin-dependent diabetes. We see increasingly young people getting sick or even born sick and born with severe things. So how did that come about? Now this is again where spirituality is taking a position very differently from medical science. And that is not only are we complete beings, but also that this is not necessarily our only lifetime. We have come with baggage created by a previous lifetime, or maybe even a previous lifetime, or even previous lifetimes. And we have created an attitude of body consciousness, impressions of body consciousness, impressions of ego that the soul has carried from one lifetime into the next. Addictions even, what we increasingly observe now is these babies who in the womb already are addicted. And so these inner addictions the soul carries from one birth, from one body into the next body. And the results and the repercussions are, they were sown or started in a previous lifetime, but the effect becomes manifest in a present lifetime. And it can start already from very early on. I know someone very closely from very young age, and he was born liking alcohol, and not alcohol wine, strong alcohol, vodka. He couldn't even walk yet, he crawling. But when parents have guests and they drink alcohol or whatever at that time, he would dip, he was crawling and dipping his finger in their, in their glass and drinking it. And this is very unusual for babies. Strong alcoholics like whiskey and vodka and those kind of things, it is repulsive for babies. Even the smell. But in his case, he was liking it and looking for it and drinking and getting drunk, and not even 6, 7 months old. Where is this tendency is carried from before? And what it also showed me in his case, it is not that it is, what is the word? Rigid, because over time he outgrew it and it changed. And he became an athlete and not drinking at all. And so, but we carry certain tendencies and inclinations and almost like inborn perspectives because they have been formed in a previous lifetime. And so the manifestation of physical illnesses as a baby that is one way to understand what happened. So 6-year-old agreed, there is no time for, you haven't been consciously forming anything, but the tendencies have been carried over from before. And it becomes manifest at an early age in this body. And maybe even as a preventive measure for you to stop you going into a more harmful direction.
Very interesting and very helpful. Thank you, Rona. And I see that we're sort of coming up to time now. There is one more question, but perhaps we could include this question in some meditation. So the question is, what would be the first ideal step or practice to start the shift in consciousness from pain body to soul consciousness, the repositioning journey? So could we sort of have a meditation with some thoughts on that?
Yeah, of course. But maybe just one sentence. First of all, continue to expose yourself to spiritual wisdom and spiritual practices and to people who are involved in that. That would be a first step, powerful first step. But let's have a few moments of some deeper reflection and meditation. Let us try and come to this awareness. And we acknowledge the body and the existence of this body and the story of the past and what we have done, and all of that is there. But now try and go back to essence of you, the real you. And here we exist as invisible experiencers. No one sitting behind the eyes, using the eyes as windows. The one listening through the ears. The one using the mouth to speak. Invisible, but very real. Being of consciousness. This living, conscious experiencer. We use the image of light, tiny star. This living light is a guest in this body, a guest on this planet, a traveler through time and space. Needs nothing, just enjoys the experience. And just try and grasp this understanding that the soul, the real self, is imperishable, immortal. This is a big freedom. Imperishable soul. That is the real self. Whatever happens to the body, whatever happens in this world of matter, the soul is eternal. Om Shanti. So as we continue on this journey, maybe we can aim to play with this more. The invisible presence, the invisible experiencer, and body as a vehicle.
Thank you so much, Rona, from all of us. So many things to think about, and really to apply what you've said to the self, because I think we all have something at a physical level that is challenging for us, some lesser, some more, but very beautiful ideas here that we can really explore, and guidance and advice. So as you said, it's so lovely to meet this way. And thank you for your time and your wisdom. And thank you to everyone for being here.
Thank you for this invitation. It was really lovely and so nice to see you again, Belinda.
Lovely to see you too. Thank you so much, and thanks everyone. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.